In the winter of 1959, 9 experienced hikers ventured deep into the Ural Mountains of Russia. They were never seen alive again. When rescuers found their camp, the scene was baffling. Their tent cut open from the inside. Their bodies found scattered across the frozen slope, some bizarrely undressed despite the sub-zero temperatures. The autopsies would later reveal horrific internal injuries, but with no external signs of a struggle. Avalanche? A secret military test? Or something else entirely? This is Lupine Protocol, where we search for evidence in the unexplained. Join us as we re-examine the enduring mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident. Our story begins in January of 1959. In the Soviet Union, a group of 10 students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, all experienced hikers, prepared for an ambitious trek. Their leader was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, a skilled outdoorsman. The team was fit, competent, and well-equipped for the harsh conditions they would face. Their goal was to reach Otorten Mountain, a peak in the remote northern Urals. The route was classified as a Category 3, the most difficult rating for a winter expedition. But they were confident. The mood captured in their diaries and photographs was one of youthful adventure. One member, Yuri Yudin, was forced to turn back early due to illness. It was a decision that would save his life. The remaining 9, 7 men and 2 women, continued on. On February 1st, they began their ascent of a mountain slope known to the indigenous Mansi as Kholat Siak. In their language, it means dead mountain. It was here, on this desolate, windswept slope, that they made their final camp. They were never heard from again. When the hikers failed to send a telegram by their scheduled return date of February 12th, their families grew worried. A volunteer search party was assembled. On February 26th, they found the camp, and what they found made no sense. The tent was half buried in snow, but largely intact. What was chilling was that it had been sliced open with a knife from the inside. It was as if the hikers had been desperate to escape something within their own shelter. All of their belongings, warm clothes, boots, food, and survival gear were left behind, neatly arranged. Outside the tent, a trail of footprints led down the slope. Investigators noted something deeply disturbing about them. Many were from bare feet, or feet clad only in socks. Why would 9 experienced hikers abandon their shelter and supplies, cut their way out of their tent, and run into the sub-zero Russian wilderness without their boots? The search party followed the tracks for nearly a mile down the slope towards a sparse tree line. There, beneath a large cedar tree, they found the remains of a small fire and the first 2 bodies. Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko were stripped down to their underwear. Their hands were burned and scraped, the branches of the cedar tree above them broken up to 5 meters high, suggesting one had desperately tried to climb it. Between the cedar and the camp, 3 more bodies were found, including that of Igor Dyatlov. The placement of their bodies suggested they had been trying to return to the tent. The official cause of death for all 5 was hypothermia. A tragic yet understandable end. But the real mystery lay with the final 4. It took another 2 months for the spring thaw to reveal the last of the hikers. In May, they were found buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine, 75 meters from the cedar tree. And their injuries were horrifying. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol had suffered a catastrophic skull fracture. Alexander Zolotaryev and Ludmila Dubinina had their chests crushed with multiple fractured ribs. The force required to cause such injuries was described by the medical examiner as being equivalent to a high-speed car crash. And yet their bodies showed no external wounds, no bruises, no soft tissue damage. It was as if they had been crushed by some immense non-human force. And then there was one final gruesome detail. Lyudmila Dubinina was missing her tongue. The official Soviet investigation concluded in May of 1959. The verdict? The hikers had died as a result of a compelling natural force. The case was closed, the files were classified, and access to the region was forbidden for years. A compelling natural force is not a legal conclusion. It is an admission of bafflement. Over the decades, researchers have proposed numerous theories to explain what happened that night on Dead Mountain. Let's examine the most prominent. Theory 1. The Avalanche. This is the most mainstream explanation. A small slab avalanche could have buried part of the tent, causing the hikers to panic, cut their way out, and flee. Disoriented in the dark, they succumbed to the cold. Evidence for, it explains the rush to leave the tent. Evidence against. The location on the slope wasn't steep enough for a typical avalanche. The footprints were orderly, not panicked. And most importantly, an avalanche of snow does not generate the force of a car crash to crush ribs while leaving no external bruising. Theory 2. Military weapons test. This theory suggests the hikers stumbled upon a secret military test. A concussion blast from a parachute mine or another weapon could have caused the internal injuries. The orange spheres reported in the sky by other witnesses in the region around the same time lend this theory some weight. It would also explain the government's secrecy. Evidence for, it explains the internal injuries and the cover-up. Evidence against, there are no declassified records of such a test. Why would the military test weapons on their own citizens? And it doesn't explain the missing tongue or the state of undress. Theory 3. The unexplained. This is where we enter the realm of high strangeness. This includes everything from a UFO encounter to an attack by an unknown creature, like a Russian Yeti. Evidence for, the orange spheres, the immense non-human force required for the injuries, the fear that drove them from the tent, the missing tongue, which some have suggested was surgically removed. Evidence against, a complete lack of direct physical proof. No non-human tracks were found. It relies entirely on speculation to fill the gaps left by other theories. So what happened on that frozen slope in 1959? We are left with a collection of impossible facts. Experienced hikers who act like novices. A desperate escape into a danger far greater than the one they fled. Unspeakable internal injuries with no outward sign of violence. And a government conclusion that explains nothing. An avalanche doesn't crush ribs without leaving a mark. A military weapon doesn't steal a tongue. And hypothermia doesn't make trained survivalists run barefoot into a blizzard. The case of the Dyatlov Pass hikers remains officially closed, but it is far from solved. The files are now public, but the truth remains buried under decades of secrecy and speculation, somewhere on the cold, silent slopes of Dead Mountain. Thank you for joining us at Lupine Protocol. For a full transcript of this episode and links to the declassified case files, visit our website at lupineprotocol.com. Until next time, keep searching.